the general premise is that if like Labor and Liberal, like Liberal is pro-business, Labor is pro-Labor or people who are employed.
Yep.
So raising wages and bolstering wages is like key to what they're kind of known for, right? Like it's the thing that sits within us. What is interesting around this though is like if you have someone in government raise wages, so they're saying, look, we're going to put wages up. The consequence of that is that businesses have a higher cost to deliver things.
Correct.
So if you're in manufacturing, you've got a factory, and then all of a sudden you've got to put up the wages of the people in your factory, your costs go up. In turn, you have to raise your prices on those goods, and then it like counteracts the increase in wages.
Yep.
So you end up with this like spiral, and they call this the inflation spiral. So, wages go up, and then it feeds into, or then the cost of goods goes up, but then wages need to go up, and then we just play this like back and forth game. So my main concern, and like I actually saw an interview with Anthony Albanese on this one, which it kind of terrified me a little bit. I'm like, I'll give you the analogy and then I'll talk about it. It's like, imagine you're going onto a plane and you're like boarding and you look over and you can see the captain, you give him a little wave. He goes, mate, do you know what this button does? Like, is this dial, like, if I pull this, what happens? And it's like, would you get on that plane?
No.
Yeah, I was like, the guy who's in control doesn't necessarily understand how this could have an impact. Now, and just so I'm not like I'm a business owner. Clearly, I'm going to side with the business people from there. But I actually want people to be able to make more money, and I want wages to be going up, but I want it to be done in an appropriate way.
Yep.
So when governments just raise wages for the sake of it, they go, no, we need to up wages all over here, then it just creates this spiral. And the thing that's missing in the conversation, and this is what was missing with that interview with Anthony Albanese, was like there was nothing focusing on productivity.
Yep.
So the way you actually want wages to go up is because productivity is increased. So if the productivity of a company increases, then they have more profits to increase wages or pay higher salaries. Where if we just are upping things from a forced position, it just feeds into this inflation story that's already existing today. So from a business point of view, I'm really concerned that this is the start of like that spiral. This is upping wages, increasing costs, which we're already seeing the impacts of inflation this year. And then inflation ultimately hurts the lower income brackets and the middle class more than the upper classes.
Yeah.
So I actually see this policy could be something. And again, I'm going to say could be because it might be a really positive thing in another way, but it actually leads to more inflation getting out of the gate here.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I looked at this and I'm like, okay, well, how far could they push this? So inflation was just announced at 5.1%, where the average wage increase over, I think it was the last 12 months or so, was 2.3%. And so I'm like, there's a serious gap that they're trying to catch up with, because noting that inflation is historical, like that's what it has been. So whether or not it's going to be higher or lower in the future is going to be a question that we can sort of speculate on. But I'm like, there is a serious gap for them to race up against historically and in the future. And so I'm like, well, how serious are they going to go? And I always look at this and say, well, they're obviously going to increase salaries through the government, right? So public sector, there's a very easy one for them to control. But then they're obviously going to put down probably increase like minimum wage and do all of those things down to business owners. And I say, okay, well, very first thing, how would I play that? Well, I care more about profit. So I immediately start thinking about what are the profitable things that I can do as a business owner to take expenses out. And if my labor force is going to become more expensive, then the easiest wins is going to be things like automation, outsourcing, or increasing my prices to my customer, which if I increase my prices, welcome to the spiral that you were talking about, which is the inflation. But if I start automating different parts of my business, or if I start outsourcing my workforce, then that's actually a negative impact to the economy, right? So yes, you might have more people getting paid more, but you actually probably have a lesser working class because businesses are now looking for this profitability elsewhere because they're saying, well, that no matter how productive you can make a team, if I can't make the numbers work, I will automate it, take it offshore, or do other things. And to me, that's exactly, as a business owner, what I would look at is I would just say, well, how can I compete against this? And those are some of the very quick ways that I know I can do it. So instead of me having maybe an administration girl in Australia, I might just do it overseas, to be a very specific example. And instead of me getting some people to collate spreadsheets and help me do a report, I might go and automate that and put a tool in instead.
Well, my hope in this, right, to your point, and that's a great point, is like obviously they've highlighted universities as a part of this, is if they're skilling up more people and that creates higher productivity, then this is awesome. I'm all for it. But if they're just raising wages, then I'm concerned. But I shared a photo with you the other week about a receptionist desks at a dentist. So commonly, right, it's like obviously if you've been to a dentist in Australia, you would come in, you meet the receptionist, they check you in. Now, I don't know about you, Grant. Have you ever actually like touched a receptionist at a dentist?
Never.
Like physically? Me either, right? It's actually like, so why does that person actually need to be there?
Correct.
So what someone had done, a dentist, is they'd actually set up a computer and they just left like Zoom running, and they actually had someone in the Philippines sitting at the desk that was a virtual receptionist with the camera on. She could see everyone in the waiting room. She could message the doctor on his Slack or whatever he was using for communications. So they'd actually managed to take the cost of a receptionist that might have been like a $30 an hour role in there and take it offshore for $10 an hour.
Yep.
So when, and that's just an example of like, I think we're going to see more of this. We've already seen it at like Coles and Safeway where there's more automated self-checkouts, or even Bunnings now as well. I think we're going to see more and more changes like this as businesses look to innovate. And I'd actually encourage business owners to be adaptive to this. Yep. If you've got the opportunity to start taking things, use technology or geo-arbitrage, that's how I would be playing it. I think if you're building a business now that requires a lot of Australian labour, you're facing a headwind of extreme rising costs.
Do you see there being any other opportunities for business owners with these increases? Like, is there, outside of us cutting costs and sort of becoming more productive and efficient with the labour that we do have, is there anything like, does this open up any other industries, any other sectors? Like, obviously, if you've got a company that provides overseas or offshore employees and things like that, that is obviously a good win because you are able to sort of combat that. But in your experience, does it open up any other industries where you say, oh, this is interesting? Obviously, universities and training hubs is one to go and reskill labour, etc. But are there any other sort of opportunities that you're seeing that people go, oh yeah, I could dive into that or expand my business into that?
I think we underestimate how powerful technology is here. So I'll give you an example. Even when I was a young plumber, right, I was actually at a very interesting transition where when I first started plumbing, you actually used to put copper pipes in the wall. So like you would get these copper rods and sticks, and then like what you would do for a day is effectively like cut them up and put in joins and weld things, and like they were the water pipes or gas pipes. And then a really interesting change happened where it went from copper pipes to plastic. So literally these are like, it almost looks like a garden reel, but different. So this changed where it's like it used to take a day to set up the pipes on a house, sometimes 2 if it was a big house, so we could do 2 in a day.
Yeah.
Because the ability to like roll out and bend around walls and put through joins, it was so much quicker.
Yep.
And so from my boss's point of view, it's like, well, if I use the old way, it's a day per house to do the plumbing, but if I use the new way, I can do 2.
Yep.
So I think innovations in technology are like the key catalyst for business productivity. Like I really do. So I look at this right now and I go, if more business owners could be more adaptive to that and want to take up new things, well, then they're getting investment in this areas and we actually get more progress. So I'd almost want to put the responsibility on business owners here is like, it's our job to innovate. It's our job to drive this productivity stuff, and like that's how we all win. So if I am a business that starts to do more things virtually in this example, well, suddenly that opens up that I can hire people from different parts of Australia. I'm not limited to the talent pool that's just around me.
Yep.
Or it means that I can work with other virtual businesses in a different way, where previously I might have only been able to do local things. So just think of this one here. If you're a mortgage broker and you go back 30 years, all your business was probably done what, in your local town?
Correct. Local.
Sitting at the branch?
Yep. Friends of friends, family friends.
Yeah, so our mortgage broker today, it's like, I'm not even in the same state as him.
Nope.
Nor is my accountant for that matter. And I just look at it and go, well, what's changed?
Yep.
The adaptiveness of technology. I've sat on Zoom calls with them and I've been, on the phone with them, and we use email instead of letters. But I think we forget what an impact those types of drivers, like the internet, what a driver that's been of productivity.
Yep.
So again, bringing this back to it, I just think that's such a huge thing of business owners in how I would play this one.
Hey fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into being a full stack business owner, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.